causes death, and it is Him who brings back people to life again. And when you look at the life of an individual, you see that there are two instances where people gather together. One is at the birth of an individual, where you see that not just family, but friends will also gather together. And the second is when this individual leaves this world, where family and friends will come together to pay their respects in both of those instances. But you have to remember that when this individual comes to this world, they come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when this individual leaves this world, they go back towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have to remember that it's the same God who gave this individual life and who brought him to this world. There will come a day when this individual will go back to him. There will always come a day. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He constantly reminds everyone in the Quran. When you look at the Quran, you read the Quran, you analyze the Quran, you see that the amount of times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has emphasized the life, He's also emphasized death. The amount of times that He's emphasized the life, He's also emphasized death. Why? Because He wants everyone to remember that this life, it is a reality. This life, you are here, but there's a reality that's beyond this reality. And that reality is everlasting. This life that we have, how long do we live? 60 years? 70 years? 80 years? If someone lives a long time, how much? Just a little over 100 years, correct? If you think about us human beings, we spend most of our life toiling for this world. We spend most of our life working for what? Freedom for the last maybe 10 years of our life, for the last 15 years of our life. Meaning what? From the time, for example, we graduate till the time we can retire, 65 let's say. If we start working at 20 and we retire at 65, all of that time is spent working for what? That 15 years of life after retirement. That 15 years of life, that's the reason, the main reason that we work. If this individual realized that the life that is to come is everlasting, and they kept reminding themselves that the everlasting life is what I should prepare myself for, then don't you think this individual will constantly do the good deeds that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants them to do? The same way that an individual works hard for 50 years of their life for only 15 years of peace, if this individual thought to themselves constantly that, you know what, there's an everlasting life that's going to come, that 50 years they would spend constantly doing good deeds. Constantly doing good deeds. And you see that when it comes to Islam, it just not only focuses on qawl, on speech, but it also focuses on action. Speech without action is useless. Meaning what? In Islam you have amal and aqidah. Aqidah and amal. Belief and action on that belief. If our aqidah is la ilaha illallah, then it becomes our duty to show la ilaha illallah. If our amal or if our aqidah is Muhammadur Rasulullah, then it becomes our duty to show that we truly believe Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to be the Rasul of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If our aqidah is Aliyun Waliullah, then it becomes our duty to show that yes, we truly believe Amir al-Mu'mineen to be the wali after the Holy Prophet. So what does this mean? That means that in Shia Islam, aqidah and amal, they go hand in hand. They go hand in hand. You look at all of our imams, all of them. Was their aqidah different from their amal? No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Amir al-Mu'mineen, his life, he stood up for his aqidah. Imam Hassan, his aqidah. Abu Abdullah al-Hussein al-Islam, he gave his life for the aqidah. So what does this tell you? That the aqidah that you have, it's what's going to give you salvation in the afterlife. The aqidah. And when it comes to aqidah, when it comes to beliefs, you have narrations, for example, from Imam Sadiq al-Islam. You have narrations from Imam Baqir al-Islam. That both of them, they say that when an individual gets into the grave, There are 5 lights, anwar, that come and surround this individual. 5 anwar that surround this individual. 1 is by the feet, 1 is on the right side, 1 is on the left side, 1 is by the head, and 1 is covering the head. And the one that is covering the head is the most luminous of them all. And it's this light that asks all the other lights. Every time, if there's a wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that comes, from whatever side it comes, Imam Baqir, Imam Sadiq, and they're both saying, whatever side that wrath comes from, one of the anwar, one of the noors, one of the lights will block that wrath. So it's this light that is the most luminous that asks the other lights, what are you? It looks at the light that is by the feet, and it asks that light, what are you? The light by the foot, the light by the feet, it says what? It says that I am, for example, it says that I am the Hajj and the Umrah this individual used to do. I'm the Hajj and Umrah. The one by the right side, when it gets asked, the light on the right side, it says that I'm the Silay Rahim that this individual used to do with the Mu'mineen. I'm the Silay Rahim. When it gets asked about, when the light on the left side gets asked, what are you? I'm the prayers that this individual used to pray. The light that is by the head, when it gets asked, I'm the fasting that this individual used to do. When all of these lights are asked, then all of these lights turn around and ask that light which is the most luminescent, what are you? And that light replies, I am the love of Ala Muhammad that this individual had in his heart. I am the love of Ala Muhammad that this individual had in his heart. And when it comes to Ala Muhammad, the narrations, they say that before an individual dies, whether this individual is a mu'min, whether this individual is a believer or non-believer, they're all there in front of them. All of them, they're in front of this individual. The mu'mineen, they become happy that they're finally seeing that individual, those individuals they spend their whole life wishing to see. The mu'mineen, they're happy. The munafiqeen, they're crying. Why? Because those individuals that they kept away from, they're the ones that are in front of them now. They're the ones in front of them. When you look at what we read when it comes to Salatul Janazah, the dua, Salatul Janazah is a dua. It's given the name Salat, but it truly is a dua. What is one of the phrases that we read? Ya Allah, we do not know anything of him except for goodness. We do not know anything from him except for goodness. What is this goodness that we talk about in the Salat? Is it truly the amal? If it truly is the amal, even if we knew this individual to have done some haram act, when it comes to Salatul Janazah, we're still supposed to read that. We're still supposed to read that. Does that mean that we're lying in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when we say that we don't know any goodness or we don't know anything from this individual except for goodness? No, because the ulama, they say that the goodness that is spoken about here is the aqeedah that this individual had. The aqeedah that this individual had. How did this individual show the aqeedah that they had? Coming to the majalis of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn al-Islam. Remembering Ala Muhammad when it was time to remember them. Showing to the people that he truly has left this world with that same aqeedah. But brother, sister, when it comes to death, we're gathered here today, why? Yes, because of the marhum. But what is the marhum by leaving this world? What do they want to give us? What do they want to teach us? They're teaching us, yesterday I was there with you. Yesterday I was there with you. Today I'm not. Just remember, today all of us are here. Tomorrow some of us will not be here. Keep that in mind, because that is a reality where Amir al-Mu'mineen, all of the Imams, they talk about this reality and they say that people tend to forget. They tend to forget. People, Amir al-Mu'mineen says, people are asleep. They'll finally wake up, they'll finally open their eyes when they come into the grave. Why? Because that's when the veils will be lifted and they'll finally see reality. And when they finally see reality, either they'll be happy or they'll be sad. the reality that they're seeing, the reality of barzakh. And that barzakh will depend on what? Their amal. Their amal. And that barzakh is a glimpse of what their everlasting reality will be. Sallallahu Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Amir al-Mu'mineen, what did he say? O servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the grave or the state in the grave of a person whose sins are not forgiven is more horrifying than death itself. Why? Why is it Amir al-Mu'mineen says that the state of a person in the grave is more horrifying than death itself? Because death, it can come in different forms for an individual. Death, it can come in different forms. Death can either be a punishment for an individual, or death can be what? A reward for an individual. Depends on what type of death it is. So you see, for example, the narrations, they say that sometimes the angel of death, it appears to an individual in a very ugly form. Thank you so much. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The angel of death, it appears to some individuals in a very ugly form. And it appears to some individuals in a very beautiful form. Death is death. The outcome is the same, meaning what? The soul is coming out of the body. But the way the soul comes out of the body is different for individuals. For mu'mineen, it comes out a different way. For mushrikeen, for non-believers, it comes out a different way. Even the effects, for example, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, look, sometimes for a moment, they're in pain when they're going through death. And they ask him, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, why would a moment go through pain? They're a moment. He goes, because that pain is atoning for sins that they committed in this world. That pain is atoning for sins that they committed in this world. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by giving him that pain, he wants him, this individual, to come to the next world clean, without any sins. And Amir al-Mu'mineen goes, and he says to the same people that death, if it's painful for a non-believer, it's because that's punishment for this non-believer. Pain on both sides. But the interpretation of that pain is different. Based on what? Based on the belief, based on the aqidah that that individual had. So you understand, or we understand, how important it is to have the right aqidah. To have the right aqidah. For example, shuhada. Shuhada. What does the Quran say about shuhada? The Quran, it specifically says, do not even think, forget say, do not even think that a shaheed is dead. No, they're alive. Yet you don't perceive. You don't perceive that life that the shuhada have. What kind of life is that? That is the real life that all of us want to try and achieve. But that life can only and only be achieved by who? Just shuhada? No. Their narration from the Ahlul-Beyt, they say that anyone that dies with the love of Ahlul-Beyt in their heart, they die the death of a shaheed. Anyone that dies with the love of the Ahlul-Beyt in their heart, they die the death of a shaheed. And you see that the mu'mineen today, this mu'min who we're gathered here for, he had the love of the Ahlul-Beyt in his heart. If he didn't have that love, all of these mu'mineen, mu'minat would not be here. If he didn't have that love, I'm sure when the Salatul Janazah was being recited, these mu'mineen, mu'minat would not have gone. It's only because of the love of the Ahlul-Bayt. That's how important this is. That's how important this aqidah is. Why? Because Ahlul-Bayt, they're the najat for us in this world, they're the najat for us in the afterlife. That's what everyone needs to keep in mind. Yes, this brother is not with us today. That's absolutely true. But he's given us, or he's left us, a lesson for all of us to learn. For all of us to learn from. And it depends on all of us to see what lesson we're taking from it. Are we just going to cry over the loss of this brother and go home and think that's it? Or no, are we going to think about this brother saying that he was with me yesterday, he was laughing with me yesterday, he was crying with me yesterday, he was standing, he was sitting with me yesterday, and today he's not here? It's the lesson that is the most important. And this is the lesson these people that leave this world are trying to teach everyone that is living. Just remember this. You're supposed to remember this when you take these individuals to put them in the grave. The sad reality is when we get together in time of burial, what do? Instead of remembering death, what do? We huddle up in groups and we might start talking to each other. Amir al-Mu'mineen, while he was taking a janazah, while they were going, he hears that there's some youths and they're just speaking amongst each other. Tadfeen is being done, and these youths, they just huddle together and they're just speaking amongst each other, laughing. Amir al-Mu'mineen gets angry at them and he tells them, do you not know what time this is? If you laugh at a time like this, then when will you cry? If you laugh at a time like this, then when will you cry? Do you not know that this individual was with you yesterday? And now you're laughing? You will be here tomorrow. Think about the amal that you do. And the Quran itself, what does it say? What does it say about amal? The only thing that we will take with ourselves into the grave is what? One book, that's it. The book of amal. The book of our deeds. How heavy is this book? Is it heavy because of the sins that we've committed? Or is it heavy because of the good deeds that we did? The aqeedah that we had, what will that aqeedah do? This is something for everyone to think about. When we leave these gatherings, keep it in mind that yes, tomorrow the same people, they will come and gather for me. As the brother said before I came, when you recite Surah Fatiha for marhum, there will be others that will recite Surah Fatiha for you. And maybe people don't understand how important the Surah Fatiha is. Amir al-Mu'mineen was asked, he was reciting Surah Fatiha for the graves, that were buried. And they asked him, Ya Ali, what does Fatiha do? What does reciting Surah Fatiha do? Amir al-Mu'mineen answers that whenever you recite Surah Fatiha, this Fatiha, it goes up towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It goes to the person in what? In the form of an apple. Amir al-Mu'mineen gave an example of an apple because he didn't know how else to describe it. So he says what? It goes to this individual in the form of an apple. Meaning what? Meaning that this Fatiha is that sustenance that is given to this individual. It's the sustenance that is given to this individual. Whatever amal that we do for these marhumeen, whatever good deeds that we do for these marhumeen, always remember that these amal, these af'al, they get transferred into whatever that world requires. For example, when you have currency, when you send it from America to any other country, what happens to that currency? It automatically gets exchanged into the currency of that country. It automatically gets, you don't have to do anything. You just send the money, and for example, if you send it to Iraq, they'll get dinar. It's the same with these amal. This Surah Fatiha, it automatically gets converted into the currency of that afterlife. It gets converted into the thawab of that afterlife. And you have to remember what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, what? The food. People ask, why do you serve food? Why do you serve drink? The person is gone. They're not going to benefit. No, they will benefit. They'll benefit from what? They'll benefit from your amal. The food and the drink isn't for them. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, it's not the blood or the meat that reaches Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it is the intention of the individual. When you have good intention, it's that intention that leads to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's that intention. When a believer enters the grave, when a believer enters the grave, the narrations, what did they say? They say that angels, they come into the grave of this believer. And they tell this believer that you have nothing to be afraid of. Your whole life, you did nothing but good. We're here just to give you the blessings. We're here just to welcome you into this everlasting peace. That's what these angels come for. When a disbeliever enters the grave, that's when the angels, they come and they tell this individual what? They tell this individual everything that is to happen to him. That's why you see in the narrations, they talk about how the angels, when they come for a believer, they're in a good form. The angels, when they come to a disbeliever, they're in a very ugly form. They're ready to punish this individual in the grave as soon as the soul, or as soon as his body and the soul enters. Why? Because of the amal and the aqidah this individual had. Amal and the aqidah of this individual. And when this individual gets in the grave and he sees the reality that's in front of them, what is it that this individual says? The Quran, it tells us that this individual will say to these angels, send me back. Send me back. Why? Perhaps I may do some good in the world. Send me back. Maybe, la'alla. Send me back. Maybe I will do some good in the world. Look at this individual. Even though they see reality, this human being, even though they see reality in front of them, they see everything that is to happen to them, they say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they say to the angels, what? Send us back. Why? So that maybe we'll do something. Maybe we'll do some good deed. Isn't that the place, or isn't that the time when you truly see what's in front of you, say, Ya Allah, send me back, I will definitely do good deeds? That should be the time. Yet this individual, this human being, it says, maybe I'll do some good deeds. Meaning what? Meaning even then, this human being doesn't realize what is going to happen to them. Doesn't realize what is going to happen to them. You look at the life of the Ahlul-Beyt, and all these people that are gathered here for this marhum. Abu Abdullah al-Husayn alayhi salam, how many people were gathered for him the day of Shahada? For the marhum, it's been 1 week, I believe, 2 weeks. For the marhum, it's been 2 weeks. And mashallah, all of these individuals, they've gathered here. You look at the life of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn alayhi salam, they weren't even allowed to cry for Abu Abdullah al-Husayn alayhi salam. They weren't even allowed to cry. Those 2 weeks when Abu Abdullah al-Husayn had barely been put into the grave by Sayyid al-Sajideen, where was Al Rasul? Kufa? From Kufa on their way to Sham. The family of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn alayhi salam was not there to weep over Imam Hussein. The family of this mu'min is here to weep over this individual that left this world. That left this world. In one way, this mu'min is very lucky that there's so many mu'mineen that are gathered here to remember him and commemorate him, that he's left this world. Because our master Abu Abdullah al-Husayn did not even have that until when? Until Al-Rasul came back from Sham, they came back to Medina. That's when they were truly given the opportunity to remember Imam Hussein alayhi salam. If you look at the events of Karbala, brothers and sisters, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, after the shahadat of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn alayhi salam, it's the night after Ashur. Lady Zainab, She's found all of the children, but there's one child that was missing. There's one child that was missing. And she leaves all the children to who? Lady Kulthum. And she tells Lady Kulthum, oh sister dear, look after these children. There's still one child of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein that is missing. I need to go find her. The narrations, they state that this child, after the tents were burned, she ran out of the tents. And when she ran out of the tents, the enemies, what did they do? They pulled at her earrings to tear out those earrings, to the point where they severed her earlobe. They severed. This child, she runs. And at that night, while she was running, Hamid ibn Muslim, he says that I see this child and I ask this child, I go close to this child, and she puts her tiny hands up and she says, oh sir, I don't have anything else. They've taken everything from me. They've taken my jewelry, they've taken my earrings, they've taken everything from me. Please, do not hurt me. I don't have anything. That's when this child, she puts her hands together, and when she says it's Hamid, he says, oh dear child, I'm not here to take anything from you. I'm here to put out that fire that is there on your clothes. I'm here to put that fire out. He puts out the fire and she asks him, oh kind sir, thank you for this kindness. Can you do me one more favor? He goes, what is it? Can you tell me the direction to Najaf? And he asks, why do you want to go to Najaf? Because my grandfather Ali is in Najaf. Ali is in Najaf. Najaf, he points her to the direction of Najaf. And when he points her to the direction of Najaf, the narration states that she was going towards Najaf. And as she was going, there was an individual that came from that same direction. That individual, he sees this child, he picks her up, and he asks her, oh my daughter, where are you going? And she says that I'm going to Najaf. Why are you going to Najaf? Because my grandfather Ali is there. This individual, he says, may your grandfather be sacrificed for you. And as this individual picked up this little child, Lady Zainab, she came to this place and she looks at that individual and she says to him, oh kind sir, thank you for finding this child for me. I found all the children of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam, but it was only this child that was left. And this is the child that Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam loves the most. Can you give this child back to me? That's when this individual, he puts Lady Sukaina down, and he says just one time, Zainab. When he says Zainab one time, Lady Zainab, she turns around and she says, how do you know my name? And that's when this individual, he says for a second time, oh my daughter Zainab. When he says, oh my daughter Zainab, Zainab realizes that's her father that's standing there, and she starts to cry. When she starts to cry, she says, oh father, I kept calling you when my brother Abbas was martyred, but you never came. I called you when Ali Akbar was martyred, but you never came. I called you when Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam's head was severed, but you never came. Now you've come. Brothers, sisters, Lady Zainab, she takes Sakina back to the tent. When she takes Sakina back to the camp, the narration states that the mother or the wife of Hur, she comes. When she comes with some water. When she comes with water, Lady Zainab, she asks, who is it? Who is it? And she says, I'm the wife of Hur. This lady, she says, I brought water to the children of Ali Rasul. Lady Zainab, she asks, there's water now. Is there anyone that wants water? There wasn't a single child that said, oh Auntie Zainab, we want water. Thirsty for 3 days. No one says that we want water. That's when the mother of Asghar, she gets up. When she gets up, Lady Zainab, she asks her, oh Rubab, do you want water? Rubab, she says, Ya Zainab, Ya bint Rasul, please just give me permission. And she says, you have my permission. What do you want to do? She says, oh Zainab, I finally have water. I'm going to go out into desert and call out my son's name, Ali al-Asghar. We finally have water. Do you want any water? Do you want any water? I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our sins. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive the sins of all the mu'mineen, mu'minat that are gathered here tonight. I especially ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive the sins of the marhum that passed away, and to make his place next to Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Please, brothers, sisters, recite another Surah Fatiha for this marhum and for all the shuhada of the religion of Ahlul-Beyt alayhim salam. Bismillah ar-Rahman.